Now, the next panel is life with a rare autoimmune condition. Now, life with a rare autoimmune condition, sponsored by our platinum partner, Argenex. Moderating today is Gwen, Valencia, right, who brings more than a decade of experience in community advocacy and education through pharmaceutical leadership. She's joined by two inspiring patient ambassadors, Dawn W., an MG ambassador, author, and TEDx speaker, whose advocacy began after her myasthenia gravis diagnosis in 2003, and Mel K., who is navigating life with CIDP. Put your hands together for these beautiful ladies that are going to share some wonderful information on Black health. That's right. Give it up.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here today. I am so excited to be here. This is my second year at Black Health Matters and partnering with them to bring you some information that I think is very important today. As Tobias mentioned, my name is Gwen Valencia. I am part of a company, part of the patient advocacy team of Argenex. We are a global immunology company that focuses on autoimmune conditions. And today, I am so excited to bring to you two of our patient ambassadors for two of the conditions that we work in. Myasthenia gravis, which we will now refer to as MG, and chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. Say that 10 times, that's a big one, which we'll refer to as CIDP. Dawn, who's right here to my left, she is our patient ambassador for MG, and Mel is our patient ambassador for CIDP. And they are going to be sharing their stories, their journeys with all of you, their advocating journeys as well for their health. And I really feel that through their stories, you are going to not only learn so much about MG and CIDP, but I also think you're going to learn some ways on how to advocate for yourself through your health journeys. So thank you so much, and we're so excited to be here. All right, so we're gonna get started with the first question, which is really, both of you, if you can share a little bit about your story and your journey to diagnosis, what your life was like before you received your diagnosis, what was going on there, and when you also realized that something was going on and kind of what you were feeling. Dawn, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Is this on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. Yeah. Thank you. So for me, before my diagnosis, my life was great. And I would say I was living my dream job, working my dream job in corporate America. I finally got the salary level that I wanted in corporate America. My job involved corporate marketing and recruiting. So my job had me traveling all across the US, supporting 500 different offices. And so I love to travel, so this was great for me. But then I was about to take a mission trip to South Africa. And shortly before the trip, I ended up suffering an allergic reaction to something. But I didn't think anything of it, and I definitely wasn't going to cancel my trip to South Africa. But while I was in South Africa, I noticed that I couldn't do some of the things that my grannies were doing. They were outpacing me. And I just kept thinking, wait a minute, something is off. And even though I didn't know what was exactly off, I just felt really tired. And one of the things that we did was to go to like an elephant sanctuary. And so they let us get on top of the elephants. I couldn't pull myself up. And I kept thinking, okay, this is odd. And then we went to Tabletop Mountain, and just trying to go up the mountain was very difficult. And I just kept thinking, okay, what is happening here? When I got back to Atlanta, to the Atlanta airport, I fell. And at first I thought maybe I tripped over a curb or something because, you know, sometimes those things happen. But then I kept falling, having more falls. And, you know, as we do, we brush things off like it's just a fluke. So then as I'm traveling in another city, I started experiencing double vision. And I kept thinking, wait a minute, something must be wrong with my glasses. Let me go get a new prescription. The whole time I'm thinking the problem's with my glasses, not my actual vision. So I see a doctor, he puts a prism in my glasses, and I'm like, okay, great. Now I only see one, you know, instead of two. But then something just kind of dawned on me, and it's like, wait a minute. When I take my glasses off, I'm still seeing double. So that didn't actually fix the problem. And so the next thing I noticed was I started having trouble holding things. I could hold like just a phone or anything and I would drop it. Or I would go to try to turn a door knob and I wouldn't be able to actually turn the door. And I kept thinking, okay, this is not normal. So since I was traveling so much, I went to see yet another specialist. And all total, I've seen, at this point, I think I saw about 8 different specialists to try to figure out what was going on. And I was falling like crazy because at this point, it's like, no, it's not carpal tunnel because that wouldn't cause you to fall, right? But what is it? So, you want me to keep going or?
No, thank you, Dawn,
Yeah,
for sharing.
yeah.
No,
Stop it right there.
And so, some of the symptoms that she was feeling. Mel, can you share a little bit about your journey and kind of how you were feeling?
Yes. For myself, this is someone can hear me. Okay. For myself, I grew up in the Philippines and came here to the States when I was a child. I was raised, sorry, I began living in Northern Virginia in 1999 when I was reassigned there in the Air Force. And I retired in 2011, and I stayed in the area with my husband and my 27-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter and 12 cats. Yes, I have 12 cats. I love cats. And before the pandemic, I know, 12 cats, I know. Before the pandemic, I had planned on having a really successful year in my studio. Dance is a really big part of my life, and it's a really big passion of mine. And I have a studio that I run, and I had planned 2020 to be a really big part of successful part of time in my studio. And around that time, I was also a chiropractic clinician, and I was also teaching online as an adjunct professor. And around that time, I had done something to my upper back and re-injured a neck injury that I sustained in the early 2000s in a rear end collision. And I also had re-injured it again in another rear end collision in 2021 and 2022. And that resulted in the neck surgery in the end of 2022. And around that time, about a month later after the surgery, I started feeling tingling and numbness in my hands and my arms. And then my knees and my lower legs started going numb as well. I started to lose balance. I couldn't walk. I started started dropping things. I couldn't type. I was an adjunct professor, so I had to do a lot of computer work, but I couldn't type. I saw my PCP, and he referred me to a neurosurgeon who did the emergency MRI and the CT scan of my neck to make sure there wasn't anything wrong with my neck from the neck surgery. So from that point on, that's when all the testing began at that point. So
Thank you both for sharing. And we can see a lot of similarities between both of your stories. And when you started feeling symptoms, you knew something was going on. It just kept progressing. I would love now for us to hear a little bit more about what was the process like to determine what was, you've already sort of started on that, you know, what was it like to actually figure out, navigate the healthcare system and get a diagnosis? Mel?
So from that first appointment, my neurologist sat me down and listened to all of my symptoms. So he ordered a slew of lab work. And he acknowledged that there was something, going on, but he referred me to a different neurologist who specialized. So from that first appointment, my neurologist sat me down and acknowledged that there was something wrong, and he ordered a slew of lab work. He then referred me to a different neurologist who specialized in nerve testing, and that second neurologist believed he knew what was going on, but he also wanted to do additional lab work and wanted to do a lumbar puncture the following week. And after that procedure, about 2 days later, I received a phone call and was told that the lab work, the lumbar puncture, and the nerve testing was enough to diagnose me with the CIDP. So that was, and looking back from that, from all those appointments, my diagnosis came pretty quickly from what I've heard from other folks. But with since my body is what I use for my tool, being a dance instructor and a fitness instructor, I knew I needed to know what was going on fairly quickly. So
Thank you, Mel. Dawn?
You were very lucky.
I pushed, so I knew I was really very lucky.
For me, I was headed back out of town to finish a project, and I'm just going to say this was divine intervention, because normally I would get in my car from the garage, but for whatever reason, my car was already in the driveway and I collapsed. And where I live, it's kind of like a dead zone for cell phones. So I'm lying on my driveway, and thank goodness someone was having their yard work done on that day, and they saw what happened. They called an ambulance. I go to the hospital. Now, at this point, I physically cannot stand up. I cannot support my weight. I can't even hold my head up. And my voice, I was having difficulty speaking as well. And so when you have MG, you can sound like your voice is slurring, like maybe you're drunk. And so imagine going to the hospital like this, looking the way that I look. The doctors that I saw were pretty dismissive, initially thinking that I was there for drugs. And to their credit, I did say, hey, I have a plane to catch. Can you give me something so I can go on the plane? I was so clueless that I can't walk, that didn't even faze me. Just, I need to get on this plane, because my dedication was more to the job than to my own personal health at that time. So when I explained when my symptoms started, the neurologist kept thinking, no, you must have picked up something while you were in South Africa. We're going to go down that path, think that maybe it's a viral infection that you may have picked up. They did the spinal tap as well. That was negative. And then there was a psychological consult, because then the doctor's like, we don't know what's wrong with you, so we're going to send you for a psych consult. I could not walk. And if it wasn't for the fact that I knew people in the ER and my partner who was like, wait a minute, she's been to every specialist out there. The one thing that she has not been tested for was MG. The neurologist thought about it for a moment and said, oh, well, yeah, let's test her for myasthenia gravis. So I had the blood work done and the painful nerve conduction study done, which I don't recommend unless you absolutely need it. It's very painful. But it was very informative because that provided a conclusive diagnosis of myasthenia gravis for me. And for me, it was just knowing what it was called, that it's not in my head, that this is something that, at least if I know the name, even though there's no cure, now I know a way to move forward.
Thank you. And with both of your journeys, I know, Mel, yours was a bit shorter, but sometimes for these rare conditions, it can take years to figure out what's going on. And as Dawn mentioned, lots of specialties, even for you going to get a psych eval because they, didn't know what was happening. So thank you for sharing that. When you finally found out that you had MG and CIDP, what was going through your head? What was, they tell you this is what you have. It's a rare autoimmune condition. How are you feeling? How did your family and friends react once you had a diagnosis? Dawn?
When I told my family what I have a lot of nurses in my family, so they were very curious as to how I was going to be getting treated. And when I told them, well, there's only one treatment on the market for it at the time, they were very curious. Some of my family members, though, they thought it was contagious. So they're like, I'm not coming to see you. I don't want to get that. I like being able to walk. I don't want to be falling down. So it was a lot of educating in terms of what this does. But then I have some really, really good friends. One of my friends in particular paid for me to have a chef to cook my meals. And this is before, we have all these great delivery services now, but she was like, I got you. Tell me what you need. And it was good to have just that village of people to step in and say, we don't know what to do, but we can do this.
Wonderful. Mel?
Well, for me, it was a relief to finally have a diagnosis. Of course, I didn't know what it was, but that relief was fleeting because nobody explained to me what it meant. No one told me that it was a lifelong condition. My doctors didn't explain to me that it was a chronic, that it was forever. My first questions, of course, were when will the medication start working? Because I wanted to get back to my life. I wanted to get back to my dancing because my dancing is just such a passion to me. I wanted to get back to my home, my family, my kids, my dancing, my students. That chronic was mentioned, but it wasn't explained. When I got home, tried to do a workout because this is the kind of person I am. Because that's what I do. I'm a dance and fitness instructor. So I went home and tried to do a workout and knocked me right in my bottom. Trying to do your everyday things at home sent me right to a flare. Trying to do errands, trying to do cooking, trying to take care of the cats, couldn't do any of that. Trying to do anything with my daughter, couldn't do any of that. Lost friends, because I couldn't go out to do anything with my friends. But of course, my family, my friends who were able to stay with me and understand what was going on, they stayed and helped out with, at home. My daughter's godparents were the ones that were able to take care of her because I couldn't. So life changed. And I lost my studio because I had to close it because I couldn't mentally and emotionally take care of it. So for somebody like me who my body was my tool, I lost it. So that changed. I'm sorry, every time I talk about this, I get emotional. So my life changed, and that whole first year was really hard. So
thank you for sharing, Mel, and thank you for sharing, Dawn. It's so important, that each of you are here sharing your stories with MG and with CIDP. Throughout all of this journey that you were on and that you're currently on, how did you find ways to advocate for yourself, for your health, to find a solution, to what was going on? Mel?
from the beginning, I was my biggest advocate for myself. I pushed for answers from the beginning. That very first appointment with my neurologist in itself was the hardest to get. I called constantly for appointments. When I sat down with that neurologist the first time, I laid out all my symptoms. He listened to me, and I was eventually referred to that other neurologist for that appointment. When I was given that first set of blood work, I was told you had to wait 72 hours to get those results. And I was like, no, I'm not. I called every day and asked for the results. I kept calling and calling and calling. And then the receptionist was like, you have to wait. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm not waiting. This is not your body that's losing the capability to do what it used to do. I'm not waiting. I kept calling. She was so irritated with me, but I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can no longer do a turn that I used to be able to do in my sleep with my eyes closed. I'm not waiting. So I was my biggest advocate for all of this. And when they told me that I had to wait for another set of lab work and for another appointment, I was constantly calling. Being your advocate for yourself, no one else can do it for you. So you have to do it yourself. So you had to do it for yourself.
Thank you. Dawn?
For me, I learned while I was in the hospital that I had to start advocating for myself at that moment. That initial visit to the hospital landed me in there for over 30 days. And so I could not walk. And there was just something so disheartening to hear somebody who just met me say, well, let's help you fill out disability paperwork because you're probably not going to be able to walk. And when I heard those words, I'm like, you can't speak this over my life. You don't know who I am. You don't know whose I am. So this is not going to happen. And so even though this was a rare disease, I started looking up, okay, what is happening to my body? I can't walk. What exacerbates my symptoms? Looking at the stress. And then I've learned that, stress can make this condition worse. So I had to sit back and just really think, okay, I'm in a career that I love, but it's not loving me back because of all the stress. I had to actually change my whole life. But I had a life. And in terms of advocating for myself, I wanted to know what's the latest thing out there, what's coming down the pike, what can I get involved with, because this wheelchair, this is not going to be working for me. I got things to do. This is not going to work. I have trips planned that I need to go on. And so it was aligning with a physician who shared my passion and my vision for my life, not the doctor who wanted to keep me in the wheelchair.
Thank you. And the journey to diagnosis can be long, can be hard, especially within rare disease. And sometimes it, as I mentioned, can take years and goes undiagnosed for so long. I know we're short on time, but maybe if each of you can just give one piece of advice to somebody who may be in a similar situation here in the audience where your story's resonating, to try and, be that advocate and figure this out and take control of your health. Dawn, I'll start with you and then go to Mel.
What I would say is the first thing you must do is change your mindset. If you don't change your mindset on how you see what's going on with you, chances are it's going to take longer for you to get better. So when I realized I had to change my mindset if I wanted to get better, and so when I'm talking to other people, I tell them, don't make yourself a victim to whatever you're diagnosed with. Know what you can do, have goals set for yourself. But it all starts with changing that mindset.
That's right.
Don't let something like this define who you are. CIDP is not who I am. I may have it, but it's not who I am. I'm using this now to help others. I'm using this to speak and, like I said, help others. It may have been given to me, but it's not who I am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the both of you for being here today. We so appreciate you spreading awareness on both of these two conditions, and thank you to the audience. And I think we have some time for questions. If there are any questions out in the audience, I see somebody up here. Oh, over here as well.
My question, first of all, I'm a social worker. I really was there with you a couple months ago, honestly. And I'm trying to figure out how to move from here. I'm a very highly overachiever, Caribbean Black background. I'm about to get my doctorate at the end of the year. So thank you. So I say all that context because being in the Black community, right, I've been pushed into exceptionalism and overachieving and things of that nature. So I did that on the job, COVID, social work, children, DOE, and I started to notice these symptoms happening to me. And it's been 4 years and it got worse, where I think my body started attacking me. I had a pain that I couldn't get rid of. So my question to you is, in the process of your advocacy and going to the different places, how do you stay resilient and loyal to yourself and not give in? There's people that's telling you, go back to work, you just needed to rest. All of those factors are coming into play while you're going through something that no one else can see, but you feel it in your body. I'm sorry, that was long-winded.
So I was still working and traveling and falling down and still putting myself second, third, fourth. But then once things got really severe for me, once I spent those 30 days in the hospital, once I had to bring the wheelchair home, and I realized I have to put me first, period. That, it doesn't matter what my family needs. If my needs are not being met, I cannot help anyone else. And so, people understand that. People understand that.
And that's part of the reason why we're here today, to bring awareness. And thank you so much. I know we're at time, but to Dawn and Mel, again, for sharing your stories. I hope you all learned something here. If you have any additional questions, I know that we're going to be walking out that way. So thank you so much again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.